In this video, I am going to teach you how to grow potatoes in containers. Everything from what kind of potato to use, to what kind of container to use, what kind of soil, how to look after your plants, when to harvest them, and a really important trick for fertilizing your potatoes in containers, because if you get this wrong, you can end up with a really poor harvest or even no harvest at all. So you're going to want to watch out for that one. Right now, I want to talk to you about seed potatoes. So you grow your potato plant from a seed potato. So this is a small potato that has been certified pest and disease free. You can just use a potato that you've bought from the supermarket and stick it in a container, and you might get a crop from it, but it may be contaminated with pests or diseases that are going to spoil all of your hard work. Seed potatoes like this are available from garden centers, plant retailers, online, all over the place. They're not very expensive, so it's worth getting the proper seed potatoes. Now, varieties, if you are growing in containers, you want first or second early potatoes. Potatoes are divided into groups based on when you plant them. So first earlies and second earlies are the first ones that you can plant. Then there's main crops and late main crops, which you plant later on. So for growing in a container, first and second earlies. Now there's some really good ones that do exceptionally well in containers. If you can get Yukon Gold, that is amazing. This variety is called Sharps Express. Here, this has got a Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit specifically for growing in containers, so they're really good. Jazzy is fantastic. There's a variety called Vivaldi, which tastes amazing but is lower in calories and carbohydrates, and that does really well in containers. A French variety called Rat, which unfortunately does literally mean rat, but trust me, they taste absolutely amazing. They're really smooth-skinned and nutty and delicious. Or another really tasty variety that's great for containers is Maris Bard. But if you can't get any of those varieties, look for any first or second earlies, or if you know what I'm talking about, determinate potatoes. I will do a whole separate video on determinate and indeterminate potatoes, but if you look for one that either says determinate on the packet or says first or second early, you are going to have a spud that grows really well in containers. Now, when you get your seed potato, it will look like this: a lovely, bold, happy, healthy little potato. If you take that little potato and put it on a cool, bright windowsill, pretty soon it will sprout little stems like that. Now, the process of getting it to grow those little stems is called chitting, and this is a little hack to get your potatoes off to an early start. So by doing this, it means that you can start growing them like this earlier than you could actually plant them into the soil, and then these will be ready to harvest sooner. Now, you don't have to chit your potatoes. You can plant them when they look like that and you will still get crops out of them, but if you chit them, you will give them a head start. Whether you have chosen to chit or not to chit, let's talk about how to plant your potatoes in containers. Once you've selected your potato variety, now you need your container. So if you're using a container this size, so this is about a foot or 30 centimeters high by a little less wide, you can plant one potato in this pot. Now, I know it seems like that's a lot of space for just one potato, but trust me, if that tiny little potato grows you 10 or more full-size potatoes, that container is going to fill up really quickly. Now, if you've got space for a larger container, so this one is again about 30 centimeters or a foot deep, but it is about a foot and a half or 45 centimeters across. So that is a much bigger container. Now, if you only want small boiling type or salad type potatoes, you could put 3 seed potatoes in a container this big. But if you're wanting to grow them any bigger than that, I would only put 2 seed potatoes in here. The lovely thing about potatoes is, to a certain extent, you can decide how big you want your potatoes to be. If you harvest them earlier, you'll have smaller potatoes. If you leave them in the ground longer, they will grow bigger. Now, each potato does have a sort of maximum size, so at some point they will just have reached their full size and that's the end of it. But if you want bigger potatoes, you just need a bigger container, full stop. There's no way around that. Now, you don't even have to use a container. You can use just a bag of compost, and I'll show you how to do that. So I have here a quite heavy 60-litre bag of compost. Now, you could, if you wanted to, turn it on its side like this, cut along the top and stick a couple of potatoes into it, or you can turn it on its end like that, cut the top off of it, take some of the compost out to use for something else, and then use the other half of that compost bag as a potato planter. If you want them to look all neat and pretty, you can take all the compost out, turn the bag inside out because it'll be black on the inside, and then put your compost back in. If you are using a compost bag, you must add drainage holes. So just using a sharp pair of scissors, cut some drainage holes into that bag so that the water can drain out of it nice and smoothly. Garden trugs like this are really brilliant for large planters, but again, you need to drill drainage holes in the bottom of them, which you can see I've done here. Drainage is really important. Potatoes love lots of water and lots of nutrients, but if you don't give them adequate drainage, they will rot and you won't have good potatoes. Potatoes are really hungry, thirsty, water-loving plants, but that water needs to be able to drain freely away. If your potatoes are sitting in really wet, waterlogged compost, they're going to rot and you will not have a harvest, and that's just a waste of everybody's time. So plenty of drainage, whichever kind of container or grow bag you're using. Now let's talk about what you're going to put into your container. You can of course use a multi-purpose compost, or you can use garden soil mixed with well-rotted manure. Remember, these are hungry, thirsty plants. Manure is full of nutrients and it helps to hold moisture. So when you add manure to your soil, you're not only giving a nutrient boost, you're also making it more resistant to drying out, giving it a chance to hold on to more water for longer. It's really important that that manure is well rotted. If it's fresh from the stables, it's going to be really high in nitrogen. It's potentially going to burn your plants. The pH can vary wildly. Just never ever use fresh manure. Always let it rot down, and then you will have the most amazing boost for your compost or your garden soil. Because potatoes are such hungry crops, it's a really good idea to add some extra fertilizer into your container. But now this is important, pay attention to this because you can go seriously wrong with fertilizer. First of all, potatoes like a balanced fertilizer. So if you're using a man-made fertilizer, you want to look on the side of the packet where it says NPK, and you want all the numbers to be about the same. So something like Westlands Grow More, which is NPK 777, that is ideal. Or something like Fish Blood and Bone, which is almost balanced. Something that has the same or nearly the same of all of those nutrients is ideal for potatoes. But remember that when you're putting fertilizer in a container, that fertilizer does not have anywhere else to go. Eventually, with watering, it will wash out. But if you put too much fertilizer into your container, it can seriously damage or even kill your crops. So it is so important that whenever you're planting anything in a container, you only put in as much as it says to on the packets. Different types of fertilizer, different brands of fertilizer all have different concentrations, and so the amount that you should use is different. It is really important that you read the packet and only use the correct amount. If you put too much fertilizer into your container, you could end up stunting the growth of your crops or even killing them. So this is the big important tip. Don't over fertilize your potatoes. Do fertilize them, definitely do fertilize them, just give them the right amount, not too much. The way that you plant potatoes in a container is very simple. You take your container, you about half fill it with your compost or your soil and well-rotted manure mix. You take your potatoes, you put your potatoes about halfway down into the compost, cover them over, water them well. If you're using those chitted potatoes, look at the direction that your stems are growing in and make sure that that is facing up towards the light. You don't want to bury them upside down. And when those leafy, lovely leaves grow up through the compost add more. The stems and leaves will grow up through the soil, and at that point you can completely cover them again with more compost or more soil. So you're completely burying the leaves and stems of your potato as they grow until you've got your container nicely filled. Now, the reason for doing this is really simple. Your potatoes will turn green and not be very nice to eat if they get exposed to the light. So by doing this, you're making sure that all of those potato tubers that you're growing to eat are staying really well covered and protected from the light. You're making sure that all of the stem that can potentially produce potatoes for you is in contact with the soil so that it will produce potatoes for you, and you're making a bigger reservoir of nutrients and moisture retaining material by adding more soil and compost. So don't be stingy with the compost for your potatoes. Fill your container right up. This method of growing potatoes is called earthing up. It is a traditional way to do it. We've been doing it here in Ireland for hundreds of years, and it works really, really well. Once you've got your container planted up and you've earthed up your potatoes until they're all the way at the top, the leaves will then grow out of the top of your container, and you'll actually get quite a dense sort of a bush coming out of the top. So even if it rains, not a lot of water is going to get through those dense leaves down into your container. Potatoes are thirsty. I know I keep saying it, but keeping them well watered is really important. If you let them dry out, they're more susceptible to conditions like scab, which damage the skin of the potatoes, and more importantly, they won't grow to their full potential. So keeping these beautifully well watered is really important. You'll know that they're ready to harvest because your beautiful leafy potato plants will get flowers. Now, these can be white or pink or purple, but they will get flowers, and sometimes they'll even produce little green fruit that looks sort of like tomatoes. Do not eat those little fruit. They're not edible at all. Just the potatoes are edible. The leaves, the stems, the flowers, the fruit, every other part of this plant is not edible, but the delicious potatoes are. So don't eat the little green fruit. Those are just a sign for you to let you know that there are some mature tubers inside your container. Now, as a rough guide, when you plant your first and second earlies or your indeterminate potatoes, from the time you plant them to the time that they're ready to harvest is around about 4 months. You can harvest them a little bit earlier if you want little bitty small ones, or you can harvest them a little bit later if you want to make sure that they get as big as they're possibly going to. The lovely thing about growing potatoes in containers is that it is so easy to harvest them. If you aren't sure if your potatoes are ready to harvest, you can just gently dig away a little bit of the soil with your hands to see if the tubers are big enough for you. If you want them to grow a little bit bigger, just cover them back over with the soil, water it, and let them keep growing a little bit longer. But if you are happy with your potatoes, you can simply tip the container out onto a tarpaulin or into the garden. All of the soil that you used to grow your potatoes is fine to use for mulch, but it's not okay to use this to grow tomatoes or potatoes again. So you can put it on any other plant in your garden, but not tomatoes or potatoes. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe to the channel because I've got loads more amazing videos coming up.